Good evening, everybody. Professor Mani welcoming you on behalf of the Bombay Management Association. As we are all aware, our special session today focuses on CSR, and we have an industry leader in the field of CSR here with us today, Mr. Nixon Joseph. Mr. Nixon Joseph has had a long career with the most famous State Bank of India group and has completed over 3.5 decades of service with this organization. Has been across several positions in different parts, not only in India, but all over the world. He today is the head of the SBI Foundation, which leads so many initiatives in the field of CSR on behalf of the bank. Besides that, Mr. Joseph is often referred to as a fitness guru because he has not only participated in several marathons, but during the lockdown period has completed 3 marathons within his house, just to confirm his dedication and commitment to this entire approach of staying fit. He was mentioning to me in passing that he's had the opportunity to interact with several sportsmen from all over India, including the most famous Pullela Gopichand. Mr. Joseph has also been the recipient of several prestigious awards for his contribution to society. Key among them is the Abdul Kalam Foundation Award for his service to society. Last but not the least, I think his entire approach to sharing has led him to complete over 80 webinars till date since the lockdown has begun. Not only confirms his seriousness to CSR, but also his commitment and interest. BMA is indeed privileged to have you here, with us, Mr. Joseph. May I hand over to you to please begin the session. Let's welcome Mr. Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Professor Mani. And okay, thank you, Professor Mani. And thank you, Bombay Management Association, for this opportunity to address you all on the topic of CSR during pandemic times. The pandemic has brought untold miseries and inflicted incredible socio-economic hardships in the lives of a vast majority of people worldwide, including India. The face of India's COVID crisis has been the hapless migrant worker. How is the 350 million workforce of these daily wage workers going to survive during the ongoing pandemic crisis, resulting in the loss of livelihood due to continuous lockdown and economic crisis, is the moot question today. While the government has been trying to mitigate the impact with relief packages and schemes for the vulnerable, the road seems too long. Beyond the health crisis, as we all know, COVID-19 will bring a host of social issues with it, including food, insecurity, unemployment, and challenges related to education, mental health, and domestic violence. The needs of the vulnerable become an even more urgent priority. The COVID-19 pandemic is exposing the systemic inequalities of our economic system and threatening progress towards equality. It is estimated that the economic fallout could push an estimated 500 million people into poverty and take global development progress back 3 decades, primarily in emerging economics. In India, we can see that to mitigate the adversities brought out by COVID, all the corporates have extended their hands to combat against the pandemic. So we see a lot of corporates drawing into the CSR funds and addressing issues like medical response, food insecurity, access to learning, and support for vulnerable populations. USBI had donated 100 crores rupees to the Prime Minister's CARES Fund. Also, the bank had set apart 0.25% of their profit for the year 2019-20 for COVID-related relief activities. CSR has evolved in India over the last few years from being voluntary, philanthropic, and unsystematic to organizations instituting structured and strategic programs to contribute towards causes that enable the welfare of the society. The focus and effort made around CSR was enhanced by the amendments to the Companies Act 2013 that defined the scope for organizations above a certain size and threshold to mandatorily do CSR activities. Recent data released by the government highlights significant amounts being spent for development and management of CSR initiatives, with a reported spend of close to 15,000 crores in 2019-20. The government of India is also inspiring the companies to provide social support in this age of COVID-19 by making all expenditures incurred on activities related to COVID-19 relief as permissible avenues for CSR expenditure. But the pandemic has had its impact on non-government organizations and civil society organizations. Many non-profits and corporations are keeping their existing community associations and projects alive by tying them up to COVID-related causes for the time being. The global pandemic of COVID-19 has posed new challenges to the CSR agenda, with an unprecedented impact on their business. Companies will not be able to generate profits like previous years and are therefore likely to significantly reduce CSR budgets in the year to come. Since the COVID pandemic reached India, the focus of NGOs and CSR funders has been correctly on addressing immediate relief activities, from providing supplies to migrants to giving targeted support to end beneficiaries. From SBI Foundation also, we have supported many short-term relief activities, including supply of PPE kits, distribution of ration, food kits, distribution of medical equipment, ventilators to critical hospitals all over India. In fact, we have distributed more than 650,000 ration kits all over India, apart from many projects focusing on long-term impact. However, this focus on COVID relief activities have had an unintended adverse impact on NGOs, especially those who are dependent on foundations for funds. Because COVID has become the priority for foundations, the NGOs which have been focusing on unrelated themes like education, women empowerment, livelihood, climate change, etc., may find raising funds quite challenging during the year and the next 2-3 years. Therefore, NGOs, civil society organizations have to innovate. For every rupee spent on CSR, foundations, donors want to get the biggest bang for the buck. Every incremental rupee spent should have the maximum return on investment in tangible terms. Therefore, NGOs, will have to increase innovation in the design and execution of programs to chart out more efficient paths in developmental initiatives. What are the implications of this pandemic on NGOs? Many of them are likely to find raising funds quite challenging. Therefore, it is important to start thinking how to significantly reduce costs while maintaining key capabilities. Also, as I told, the near and medium-term focus of CSR funders is likely to be COVID-19. So NGOs have to think how we can build a narrative around COVID. For instance, if the focus is on building awareness to preventive healthcare in a community, the NGOs can address misinformation related to COVID-19 and provide actionable guidelines to the community. Similarly, if the NGO is a skilling organization, they can identify sectors for which the demand is likely to be high after the lockdown and start preparing for this. It will be beneficial if NGOs understand these focus areas and weave a narrative around their cause that has a strong COVID link. I believe that in the upcoming years, funds will be available for CSR activities, but the key issue is how to channelize funds to solve social problems in a long-term sustainable approach. The future lies in innovation and its implementation to tackle upcoming challenges. Social entrepreneurs are going to be way forward for CSR initiatives. Companies are looking at creating shared value and not just pure philanthropy or donation. Social entrepreneurs can play an active role where they can work on solving issues, but in a financially sustainable manner. And corporates can partner with the social entrepreneurs, either as an impact investor, becoming their consumer, supplier, or playing a role in enhancing the use of technology. Corporates can bring their capabilities, their strength to support these social entrepreneurs in overcoming the challenges and acting as enablers of such solutions. CSRs can engage in identifying social enterprises, build their capacity, and promote them by identifying entrepreneurship potential while they undertake baseline studies, participatory appraisals to explore the needs of communities, create area maps as part of designing CSR programs. Corporates can, as part of CSR, offer entrepreneurship programs for enhancing the potential for community-led and community-owned enterprises. CSR can offer startup capital grants for social enterprises and technical assistance for growing social enterprises. They can also tie funding to causes which have entrepreneurial solutions. They can provide capital to social enterprises because we have to promote youth as job providers instead of job seekers. And CSR funds should be used to encourage such capabilities. If India has to become Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have to support, promote entrepreneurship. And here, CSR has to play a very big role. With the recent erosion in both public resources and market-based endowments, government and philanthropic funding will need to be applied even more judiciously. A potential answer lies in blended finance or using a combination of public or philanthropic grant and commercial debt capital to create new funding structures. Some of these, like social development bonds are effectively a backstop or a guarantee from a government or philanthropist that they will repay for the cost of a particular social intervention with a pre-agreed rate of interest, provided the target social outcome is delivered successfully. Such pay-for-success models like impact bonds make philanthropy more targeted and crowd, in return seeking capital and due diligence to improve the scale and quality of service. So such blended financing or pay-for-success models are going to be the trend in the years to come. It unlocks private funding for social service delivery and therefore could attract more funds to the development sector. Here I would just mention about what SBI Foundation is doing as part of its CSR vision. SBI Foundation was started in 2015 as the CSR arm of State Bank of India and group companies. We have 3 flagship programs. The first flagship program is the SBI Youth for India Fellowship, where we take 100 youths every year. This is a platform for highly educated youths in the urban areas to connect with the rural aspirations. This fellowship has been formed because we found that development sector, social sector is lacking highly educated human resources. And it is a matter of great pride to tell that 70% of those who complete our fellowships continue in the development sector. I'm also very proud to mention that we get 12,000 applications from all over the world. From those who have studied in Harvard University, Oxford University, famous universities abroad, and from IIMs, IITs, reputed colleges in India, and those who are living their lucrative established careers with Infosys, TCS, Bank of America, PwC, Deloitte, etc., chartered accountants who apply for this fellowship because they want to be part of the solution. They want to be part of this 13 months rural fellowship journey to address some problems in the rural sector. There are various inspiring stories of our fellows who have become social entrepreneurs and have become job providers instead of job seekers. I will just mention about one successful such story, which is one Anand Watts, who was a MTech from IIT Chennai, who joined as a fellow, who was working in Dangs district, Gujarat, along with the bamboo craftsmen. Because of his mechanical engineering background, he made some simple equipment for the bamboo craftsmen to reduce their drudgery. After the 13-month fellowship was over, he went back to the village and started a social enterprise, giving livelihood opportunity to 6 to 7 bamboo craftsmen. See, there are so many such inspiring stories where highly educated youths have, instead of going for the corporate sector, started social enterprises to give livelihood opportunity to the less privileged. And if, as I told earlier, if India has to progress, have to bring development, have to be Atmanirbhar, it should start from villages where we should use natural resources. We should see how natural resources, available resources in the rural areas can be utilized and social enterprises encouraged. Our second fellowship program, flagship program is the SBI Gram Seva project, where we have gone for holistic development of villages, where we have adopted 50 villages in remote parts of India, where we are converging government schemes, where we have brought internet connectivity to the villages. We have brought solar lamps to the villages. We have focused on remedial education, health awareness, bringing drinking water to the villages. focusing on the livelihood opportunities of the villagers, etc. SBI has got more than 151 rural self-employment training institutes, where more than 100,000 youths are trained in various occupations like masonry, mobile repairing, allied agriculture, etc., and also credit linked so that they can become micro entrepreneurs. Our third flagship program is the SBI Center of Excellence for Persons with Disability, where we are trying to remove barriers to employment and employability of persons with disability. Apart from this, many NGOs approach us for grants, and depending on our fund situation, we used to support them. Before I wind up my speech, I would like to mention that corporate social responsibility should not be considered as the 2% of the profit which government has mandated for corporates to spend. Corporate social responsibility should form part of the operational strategy of corporates. From the first day, from the day one, when corporates are incorporated, corporate social responsibility starts. It cannot be the 2% alone. What we are doing daily as part of our operational activities, how we are taking care of all the stakeholders, how we are taking care of our employees, how we are taking care of our customers, how we are taking care of our suppliers, how we are taking care of the communities around us. All these are corporate social responsibilities. Thank you. I'm ready to take questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. As you had promised, you have set the foundation for the further discussions to come. We sincerely appreciate and applaud the wonderful work that SBI and SBI Foundation is doing. And I'm sure many people who are here from NGOs and from other organizations will draw a lot of inspiration. I have a lot of questions in the chat box, and more of them are welcome as we progress into the discussions. One of the first questions which is coming up, I guess, is very related. Could you share some of the update on what has SBI Foundation done over the last 5-6 months in response to the COVID situation, so that we can also learn some lessons from the same?
Yes. As I told you, being the CSR arm of SBI, which is the banker to every Indian and spread all over India, when COVID had affected India adversely, we thought it is our duty to help those who have been adversely affected by the COVID and also help the nation to combat COVID. As already mentioned, we have donated 100 crores to the Prime Minister's CARES Fund. Also, 0.25% of the profit has been set apart for COVID-related activities. From SBI Foundation, what we did initially was to focus on immediate relief to those affected. So we have distributed food kits, we have distributed ration kits, we have distributed PPE kits, masks, medical equipments to critical hospitals in India. We have also donated ventilators to hospitals, many critical hospitals all over India. And as long-term projects, we have trained more than 250,000 healthcare workers on combating COVID or how to handle patients suffering from COVID. We have supported Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, in their research activities, and we have supported 2 of their activities. One is a mobile diagnostic van, which has been completed and has been handed over to the government of Karnataka. We have also supported a research activity on a mechanical ventilator, which is also in its final stage. In the long term, we are drawing out projects along with very strong international agencies to support the healthcare infrastructure system of India. And we are drawing out a very big program to strengthen the health infrastructure of India by bringing in a blended financing model that is including grant and debt. I hope I have answered.
Very much, I think. Truly all encompassing, right from the grassroots to the macro contribution that SBI Foundation and SBI has done is really remarkable. There are a lot of people who are in this audience who represent NGO organizations. And they have a generic question that based on your experience, what kind of support can such NGOs expect from the government in time to come? Would you please share some of your views based on your experience?
Support from government to NGOs? That was the question.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
I would tell NGOs depend on various types of donors to implement activities. So I'm not sure what kind of support will come from the government to the NGOs. I can only tell that in the days to come, CSR is evolving in India. Corporates have made it a very serious part of their strategy to make CSR a very strategic part of their activity, because they find that doing CSR activities, being a responsible corporate, is adding to their long-term value. So in the days to come, more and more corporates will be setting apart funds for CSR activities, which will of course be implemented through NGOs. I am not able to answer on what government will be doing towards NGOs. I can only tell that NGOs should work along with the government to implement or bring development, because NGOs cannot in isolation or independent of government bring change, because most of the issues which we deal with, like health, education, etc., are sectors where changes can be made only if the government is also made an important stakeholder. If we try to bring change in education or health or any such sector in isolation on our own, I don't think that will be sustainable. Therefore, NGOs, corporates, donors, philanthropies, all will have to collaborate and work together to bring change.
I think that's a very valid point, considering that a lot of NGOs are facing difficulty in getting the normal donations that they would have got. One is, of course, there are financial pressures even with corporates. Second is a lot of them are responding to the current scenario and trying to help the COVID recovery. But many NGOs actually depend on such donations even for existence. So I think what you said is very meaningful, that if there is a genuine collaboration between all such stakeholders, then maybe we can find solutions step by step. Another question, this is of course focused on a certain segment of society. Would you care to comment about the fact that in India, going ahead, we might need more and more NGOs to work for the senior citizens and the elderly? What are your experiences in this area?
See, as India progresses, develops, like many developed countries, the aging population will be increasing. Of course, now we are having a demographic population, like we often tell about demographic dividend, because we are having a young population. But as we progress, number of senior citizens are going to increase. As health improves, health facilities improve, the number of longevity of people increase, and therefore there would be a significant proportion of senior citizens. It is also of it's also of concern whether our government will be able to take care of all the welfare needs of the senior citizens. Also, as we shift to the nuclear family system, because of various requirements, senior citizens would have to depend on other sources for their daily activities, for support, etc. Therefore, I am of the firm belief that NGOs to take care of senior citizens will see a great increase in the number of NGOs who will have to take care of senior citizens' needs.
Sure, I think that is one of the important things that we need to remember as far as India's demographic goes, as you rightly said. Another interesting question, because I guess there are a lot of people from service organizations also with us here today. The Rotary clubs, the Lions clubs, and the others are doing a lot of work at the grassroots level, trying to help people. Whereas SBI Foundation has contributed to the Prime Minister's Relief Fund and tried to support relief at the corporate level or at the macro level. How is it that such organizations can approach SBI Foundation for support? Would you like to share some of the approaches that you all follow in selection of projects at the grassroots level?
See, when I told we have supported, we have given 100 crores to the Prime Minister's Relief Fund, I would tell that that is something which we have done apart from a host of other relief activities which we have done. In fact, apart from macro level support also, micro level support also we are doing in a very, very big manner, not only from SBI Foundation side, also from SBI also. Apart from the CSR activities done by SBI Foundation, our SBI officers are also doing a good amount of COVID relief activities. So I make it clear that we have not washed off our CSR responsibility by donating to PM Cares Fund. We are very, very conscious about what SBI and SBI Foundation should do at the grassroots level, and have done a lot of immediate relief activities as well as medium-term and long-term projects in activities related to COVID relief. That is one of the answers given. Second, I would tell is, depending on the fund's position, we welcome grant applications from all the NGOs, including Rotaract, Lions Club, etc. We have an online submission of application. You can go through our website. There is a provision for submitting applications online. And if you are not able to submit applications online, you can also send us the applications to our email IDs. You can send by email also. And we select NGOs based on criteria like the history of the NGO, the profile of the promoters, how they have been implementing the projects so far, what is the history of their timely implementation of projects, what has been the impact they have been creating, what are the thematic areas in which the NGO is working, whether the vision of the NGO is in alignment with the vision of the foundation, whether the board of directors of the NGO or the trustees are actively involved with the activities of the NGO, or these are only for namesake. All these activity due diligence measures are employed before we partner with an NGO, and we welcome any NGO to send their applications. It will be supported based on merits.
Wonderful. That's a great suggestion, and I'm sure people will write to you later. I just want to clarify they reach you via the website of SBI Foundation, isn't it?
Yes, yes, SBI
Oh,
Foundation.
wonderful, wonderful. There's another question, and that is related to the fact that a lot of corporates used to support sports initiatives as part of their CSR, especially in developing sports facilities in rural India and so on. Considering the current scenario, what is your view? Is this going to continue, or we are going to see a shift in the manner of spend on CSR projects?
See, as I already told, this year a major focus will be on COVID and COVID-related CSR projects. But at the same time, depending on the fund's position with the foundations, I would tell the other themes also, like education, livelihood, sports, climate related activity, all these also will get importance. And I am of the firm view that sports should get equal importance as given to education. Because sports is not just about winning Olympic medals or medals at the Commonwealth or world level. Sports is about discipline. Sports is a way of education. Sports is about bringing unity among the people. Sports is some activity which is above religion, caste, class, creed, all these are things. Therefore, it should get equal importance as education. And also during this COVID time, it will be very important that people take part in fitness activities or sports or get involved in some games, etc., so that it will build immunity against COVID. So depending on the fund's position, many foundations supporting various other themes, including sports also.
All right. So we hope that this balance is available, and many institutions who continue to support sports with this objective will continue to do it, notwithstanding their support to the COVID relief measures.
Yes.
We have a lot of senior people in this audience, and many of them are heads of NGOs. Some of them are our own past presidents who have led several large organizations. I'm going to invite some of them to share their view and also pose a question so that they can express their thoughts. I invite Mr. Ramesh Daswani first. He is a very active social worker himself, and is the head of a trust which does a lot of work in educating children. He has some experiences in CSR and has a question too. Mr. Daswani, will you unmute and speak, please?
Am I audible, sir?
Perfect. Please go ahead.
Yes.
You're visible also. All
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Nixon, good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
I'm delighted to see you and delighted that Professor Mani has got you as a speaker today. As he announced, you are doing more than 85 to 90 seminars during the lockdown period, which is really remarkable. Congratulations once again.
Thank
Sir,
you.
I had a small question on behalf of all the NGOs here. You are very well aware that the CSR Act is very soon going to go in for an amendment. And most probably they will pass the amendment of getting CSR support only to organizations who are registered in the Section 8. There's one of the clauses which most of us have sent our concern to the government of India, but we're not sure whether that will be looked into. But if it is passed per se, and it is going to become mandatory that only Section 8 companies will get funding from CSR, my question is, what is the logic behind this? And secondly, where do you think NGOs will go from here in that context? Because it's going to be a real big challenge, because an ordinary trust NGO to become a Section 8 company will take 6 months, 1 year, compliances issues. There are so many other complications to set up a new organization. So what do you suggest is the way forward in this situation, sir?
Thank you for that question, but it's a little complex in the sense that if government were to amend the act and make only Section 8 companies eligible to receive donations, we may have no other way but to support only Section 8 companies. So this is something which government has to take a decision, and let's wait and see how this is going to happen. Why there is a focus on Section 8 companies is that Section 8 companies have to do a lot of compliance requirements. Therefore, consider that their operations are transparent. So government wants whatever CSR funds being implemented or utilized to be like very, very transparent. So my view is that the government has gone for such a step to see that CSR sector becomes more transparent and accountable. I may not be able to give any assistance in this regard because it is a decision to be taken by the government, and we will all be forced to comply with it.
Okay. So my part B to the similar question is that you also mentioned in your speech that the CSR funding is also good for social enterprises.
Yes.
Now, social enterprises are Section 8 companies or whatever it is. So would you recommend or advise that we should go down that path in terms of from an NGO to become a social enterprise?
So even if you become social enterprises, it will have to be a Section 8 company or something like that. Otherwise, we have to wait for the government, the amendment to come. Right. I won't be able to comment on this because if we, as a public sector foundation, we have to comply with what the government is mandating. Right. And as I told you, support to social enterprises is very much required, and that is the only way for villages to progress, right? Resources to be utilized, and also Atmanirbhar Bharat, all these to happen. We have right. to encourage a lot of local resources and enterprises. So that is, I always feel we should support social enterprises.
Right. Thank you.
Great. I think that's a very nice thought process. And I guess the anxiety that Mr. Daswani has is something a lot of smaller NGOs do have, is what happens in the transition period is something they're all worried about. Added to the fact that because of COVID, their entire donation channels have also got diverted. So I think this is something which is a challenge time will have to heal for these NGOs also. A couple of questions. Yeah. Please, go ahead.
Think that government may give a transition period for existing NGOs and all to convert into Section 8 company.
Okay, that's fine. Then that will be a good solace for them also. A couple of questions which are similar, and I'm just combining them to ask you. Could you share, Mr. Joseph, some of the initiatives taken by SBI Foundation to help the physically challenged children or children in rural areas who actually need that opportunity to get into mainstream education so that we can learn from lessons from the same?
Okay. See, we have supported some children living in slums to come into mainstream education by supporting the Beti Padhao projects. We have supported girl children who are dropouts to come into the mainstream education. Supporting special children, that is children with disability, to come into mainstream education. Till now we have not supported any project, but our Center of Excellence with persons with disability has been formed with this objective. And this was started only 2 years back. And the aim of this project is to support, empower persons with disability. So as a first step initiative, we have started supporting employees of other nationalized banks who are disabled. So we are training employees with disabilities of other nationalized banks and bringing them into mainstream banking. Because what has happened is that though the government has told that 4% of the opportunity should be reserved for persons with disability, in many cases, persons with disabilities are recruited and just kept in mundane posts. Therefore, we are training them in computers, improving their literacy, training them in core banking, etc., such that they can come into mainstream banking and contribute the best. Our second step would be, we are now considering various other projects also to support persons with disability. We have recently signed up with Microsoft and decided to support, train 500 youths with disabilities so that they can be prepared for the banking, finance, insurance sector. So in the future, or maybe in the years to come, we may support children with disabilities to enter the mainstream schooling and all. If some projects, such projects are there, we are ready to support them. So if any of the NGOs who is listening to me is thinking that they are having the project, such project, they can definitely approach us and we will see how we can support them.
Wonderful. That's a great reassurance. And in the meantime, the website of SBI Foundation, we have just put it into the chat box. So those of you who want to note it down can do that immediately. We have with us one of our past presidents, Mr. Ernest Fernandez, a very senior professional, having worked in the marketing space for many years and is now a consultant. Mr. Fernandez, we'd like to hear from you, and if you have a question, go ahead, please. You can just unmute and speak. No, you'll have to unmute yourself first.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Perfect. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Joseph. It's been very enlightening. What I'd like to ask, how many full-time employees do you have in your foundation? One. Two, since you are one of the largest employers in the country, do you provide for your employees to do voluntary social work? And if so, is it on their own time or the company time?
See, we have a very small outfit with 24 employees, out of which around 10 are permanent employees on deputation from State Bank of India. The remaining have been taken on contract from the market. As regards volunteering activities, we have started chalking out activities to support volunteering for SBI employees. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we have been initiating projects where we can do such volunteering online. And once the COVID-related restrictions are over, we would go for offline volunteering also. We are also chalking out volunteering activities for our pensioners and also for university and college students. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Satish Chandra has a question. I'm going to request him to go ahead.
Sir, good evening, sir. Thank you very much. Actually, I was unable to type that question because it was an informative. So as this program is, we know about SBI Foundation, what the activities, really it's very good to hear that. But my statement was to ask you is that, sir, when this pandemic situation has come across, when we look into the companies, MNCs were started doing statements like McDonald's has changed their slogan to NN, and Audi has shown 4 circles in a separate way, and Pizza Hut has made the slogan to Pizza Home, but only slogans wise. But whereas in Indian companies, they were done excellent job, like Infosys has donated 500, ITC 150 crores,
Yes.
State Bank in 100 crores, and they decided 0.25% as a profit, net profit for the financial year of 2019-20. And Hindustan had done, TCS, Reliance has quoted 500. So this is what the point actually is, that it is clearly showing that Atmanirbhar campaign or anything, like sir is saying, was saying that they are mentoring the young Indians to start their entrepreneurships or social or any NGOs to encourage. Sir, I would like to ask you that, so is this the point for every person to be known that how these companies are taking care of us, when there is a clear picture is showing that comparison between Indian companies, how they're contributing to the society of India, where MNCs were just putting dialogues. It may be definitely effective, but at this pandemic situation, it needed more funding, so that the helpy needed people has to be given food. When somebody is hungry, it's not that, okay, please take care. You have to provide the food, something like that. So what do you say, sir?
No, what I felt was that all the corporates have done their best, and they have risen to the occasion during this pandemic time. And it is a matter for all of us to be proud of that. Our Indian corporates have like opened their tap and CSR funds and contributed to this fight against COVID in a great manner. Something all of us can be very proud of.
Yeah, that I guess that demonstration is visible, and of course, what often happens is what we read in the media is never complete. It is just one side of the story.
Yeah.
But I guess when we listen to people like Mr. Joseph and get to know the grassroots, it's extremely inspirational in more ways than one. Mr. Shankar, you had a question. You are welcome to unmute and ask, please. Mr. P. Shankar, go ahead.
I think he has already answered it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. I noticed 2-3 questions. You want to make a comment? You're welcome.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So that's taken care of. Indrapal Singh ji, if you have a comment and a question, please go ahead. Indrapal ji is again our past president and a very senior industry veteran.
Yeah. Couple of comments. I think in India, I do not know really the details, but I have heard that the expense ratio of NGOs are very high, and they range in the to the tune of 3 to 4% of the total funds disbursed or received or something like that. As opposed to that, Rotary Foundation has expense ratio of 1.5%, making it one of the world's most efficient, social service sector organization. So I think something our NGOs should learn from that to contain the expenses within very reasonable limits. And at Godrej and Boyce, we have been following a shared value model, and our overarching philosophy is good and green. So good and green. So in good, we have 2 pillars, which are about the creating employability. A very ambitious target of 200,000 or 300,000 people has been set. And also 30% of the products, what you call in the market, should be green products, certified by organizations like Greenco, etc. So that is the one major part. And there are 2 major pillars. And the third one is about becoming water independent, energy independent, and zero landfill. These are the 3 important parts of being green. So many of our factories are 100% power independent or nearly there. and we are water positive as an organization, and we are working on some of our plants are already zero landfill plants. So I think CSR being a very sort of overarching activity across the country, shared value model, I think, provides a very good way as we go forward.
True. I fully agree with what you have told. And in the years to come, all our NGOs should try to reduce their administrative expenses and innovate and see what kind of efficient delivery system they will be able to do, like Rotary Club and all. I am also aware of the fact that the expenditure ratio of Rotary Club for this project implementation is very less. And that is a model which can be adopted by the NGOs as well.
Wonderful. Mr. Joseph, as we come to a conclusion of this wonderful interaction with you, are there any wrapping up comments you would like to make, just to suggest to all our participants, what should each one of us do to make a positive impact to the society we live in? Corporate social responsibility is a corporate responsibility, but I think there is something called individual social responsibility. And from a veteran like you, I think it would be nice to hear one or two suggestions on what every one of us could do to make the society around us a better place to live in.
Apart from corporate social responsibility, each individual has a social responsibility. And especially during pandemic times, our responsibility is more. All of us know about the Sustainable Development Goals, which is to be achieved by 2030. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, if it has to be achieved and India has to progress, India is a signatory to these SDG goals. If we have to achieve that, each of us has to do something which contributes to the achievement of these goals. So taking care of the environment, taking care of the quality of air, taking care of waste management, all these will contribute towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And also during COVID times, the responsibility is more because we have to maintain social distancing, we have to wear masks, we have to see that others are secure. All these are also incumbent responsibilities, individual social responsibility. But if we are not complying with this, then we are only taking our nation to danger. And we should get away from the feeling that if one man does it or does not do it, it's not going to affect. No. Everyone is powerful. Everyone has something to contribute to the nation. Each person's kind act, each person's act of care will send a ripple of hope. And when so many millions of people do such kind acts or being individually responsible, it will create a positive wave all over India and help the nation and help the development of the nation as well. So each person has a role to play. No one can tell that I am in such a situation that I cannot contribute anything. I always believe that whatever be the status of any person, each person has something to contribute to the nation, to the world, to the humanity. So my, I will not tell message, my thought is that everyone should do whatever is possible and spread the message of hope. In pandemic times, instead of spreading message of panic, we should spread the message of hope. And that is by doing an act of kindness. In fact, our wearing mask when we are in a public place is an act of kindness. We are giving the message that we care for others.
I think that's a very, very, very nice way of putting it, because every time we keep reading that the mask is for protection, but you made a very nice point that the mask is also a symbol of showing kindness and concern for everyone around us. So
Yes, yes.
a wonderful thought. I appreciate that. Wonderful, sir. Thank you very much. We often feel that sometimes such discussions can go on endlessly, but I guess we need to put a pause to this discussion today. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone who listened to you obviously would like to interact with you a little more. There are many questions on how they can reach you. So I've suggested to them they can reach you via LinkedIn. And of course, they can reach you via the SBI Foundation website. Particularly those who wanted some support possibilities for your NGOs. Mr. Joseph has been kind enough to say that do submit your proposals for due diligence and evaluation, and the foundation will certainly do its best. As we always do in BMA Parampara, let's have a group photograph, all of us. May I request all of you to put on your videos so that we capture this moment we spent with Mr. Joseph, and it'll serve as a good memory and reminder of the interactions we had with him. In fact, Mr. Joseph started with 90 participants today, but as it often happens, digital patience is becoming a rare commodity. We still have about 65 people with us, and there are 3 screens, so please bear with us while our efficient secretariat team, Lakshmi and Oindrila, will do the honors of taking a group photograph for all of us. You can see it in the BMA social media pages. Some of you have been asking me whether, for those who missed this session, can we share the video? You'll appreciate we cannot share the video personally with people, but I assure you it will be on the BMA YouTube channel in a couple of days from now, which you can subscribe to and see. Obviously, BMA is a not-for-profit organization. There is no commercial interest. Mr. Joseph was kind enough to allow us to record it, and we'll be happy to share it with all those who take the group photographs. In the meantime, may I also tell you that the next 3 sessions that we have planned as part of our Wednesday webinar series, next Wednesday is on changing consumer behavior post-COVID. The Wednesday after that, we have an international speaker who's going to focus on blockchain and how it is impacting business and interactions in the business space. And the week after that, we have a very, very interesting session on holistic fitness. This is being delivered by Dr. Aditi Govitrikar, who is a film celebrity herself, but now leads a lot of initiatives in the field of wellness fitness space. So you will get more details on the email that you have registered with us. Do keep coming regularly for our programs. Those of us who are not BMA members are welcome to join the BMA family so that you can take advantage of all these interactions that we organize for you. Since the pandemic began, I think we are still following Mr. Joseph. We've done about 50 webinars for our members. He's on 80 plus, but do continue to inspire us, Mr. Joseph, with the wonderful work that you're doing. Keep your smiles on for another 2 minutes. They are moving screen to screen. Have that bit of digital patience. Those of you who would like to share some feedback or some suggestions can put it in the chat box so that we can use it for our further programs also.
Sir, done.
All right, Lakshmi, thank you very much, and heartfelt gratitude to Mr.
Thank
Joseph.
you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.